Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you guys a really cool sort of manifestation story, and hopefully this is a story that inspires you guys because the main message that I want to get across with this story is that you should never concern yourself about how something is going to become manifested, and this story is really a testament to that exact point. You know, there's really no need for you to really get stressed out about how something's going to come into existence or how it's going to be created. So I really want to tell you guys, share this story with you guys so that we can really drive this point home, because this is something that is amazing that happened and super cool. And yeah, I'll share the story with you and we'll kind of get into the finer details. So let's get into it. So just to tell you guys what it was that I manifested, and it seems strange for me to say that I manifested it because I didn't do anything physically to make this thing happen that I manifested. But as we all know, and as you know, Neville Goddard said, you don't need to lift a finger to make your manifestation happen if you can really assume it to be real in your imagination. If you assume something to be real in your imagination, you do not need to lift a finger. If that means that 10,000 people need to move and act and do something in order to fulfill what you've seen in your imagination, that's exactly what will happen. So the most important thing is to live in the end state where you see your end reality. Right? You've assumed that your end reality is already real, right? If you can do that, then you don't need to worry about how something is going to come into fruition. So, what exactly was the thing that I manifested? Well, what it was a amazing event that took place, that has been taking place over the past month, and it's an event that is taking place in the South Coast Botanic Gardens in Los Angeles, LA County, and it is an event called Disco Oasis. Disco Oasis, I guess it's one word. Maybe some of you have heard about this event, but last night I attended the event, and I went with my friends and some of my family members, and this event was to a T, almost to a T, what I had envisioned for years and years and years in my imagination. I had imagined an event like this in my imagination. And it all kind of started with this idea of, wouldn't it be cool if they had an event like fill in the blank? That's sort of how this thing got manifested. So I'll take you guys back to when I initially had this idea. And the initial idea came from me living in a very close proximity to the South Coast Botanic Gardens, which is a beautiful botanic gardens here in Los Angeles, that has beautiful gardens, rose gardens, all these different cool things. And I had gone to this garden, you know, regularly throughout my childhood and throughout my life because I live in a very close proximity to it. And as I began to get older, I always told myself, you know, I always thought to myself that this would be a very great place to have some sort of music festival or event, you know, summer event or summer concert, or even have, you know, some sort of like dancing event, DJing event. I always thought that to myself, but for years and years and years, they never did any sort of, you know, event like that. For as long as I've lived around the Botanic Gardens, they, you know, which is 20 plus years, they never had any sort of event like that I knew of. And I think largely it had to do with the location of the area, being in Palos Verdes, which is a sort of residential suburban area. A lot of the residents in Palos Verdes don't want anything kind of crazy. They don't want like crazy young people coming in and trashing the place. So I think that was a large reason why they never used that location for something like a music festival or a concert. But anyway, I always thought to myself, you know, whenever I went to this garden, this would be such a nice place to have a sort of concert or an event or a festival or something like that. Later on, we fast forward to my college years. I take a class called Disco Appreciation. Okay, Disco Appreciation. This was just a sort of extra, I don't know what they call it, extracurricular class or whatever they call it, just some extra units that you had to get in college. I took a class called Disco Appreciation because I was sort of at the time drawn to where the roots of dance music came from. So I took this class called Disco Appreciation, and very quickly as I began to learn about the roots and the origins of disco music and the whole story behind disco, it made me really fall in love with the music even more, because I always loved disco music. Now there's good disco music and bad disco music, but there was a lot of songs from that era that I really liked, and what I really liked about disco music was this sense of kind of escapism that disco represents, and what the music represents, and how disco music kind of came out of a very socially and politically charged environment, and how the music served as a sort of escape for people who were sort of oppressed or marginalized in society. And I loved that aspect of it, that, you know, these people that were marginalized and oppressed in society, they made music, they opened up, you know, little dance parties and discotheques, and after they worked their 9 to 5, they'd go to these parties and they would just be free. And I really liked that idea. I really loved everything it stood for, and I fell in love with the music. And in particular, I learned about one of the main producers, I guess you could call it, one of the main pioneers of disco music, and his name is Nile Rodgers. And I started studying this man, you know, even after the class ended. I started watching documentaries, kind of listening to interviews, and getting a feel for who he was and what his vision was and all these things. And I immediately fell in love with the guy, what he stood for, and it inspired me to kind of go forward and make, you know, my little version of heaven in the world, and create good music and create videos like this or whatever. So I'm babbling on and on, but through disco music, I started getting into listening to DJs, you know, modern dance music and electronic music, house music. That kind of opened up a different avenue to me. And later on, once I started working at an accounting job, I remember I used to watch DJ sets, you know, on YouTube. And I'd put my earphones on, I'd do my work, and I kind of have the YouTube tab open. And every now and then I'd come across these videos that were titled like Sunset DJ Sets, and you might have seen something like that or similar. Sunset DJ sets or something like Rooftop Sunset DJ Set. And they have a lot of those on YouTube. And I love that concept of playing a DJ set and having the sun, you know, starting up behind you, and then as you progressively go through your set, the sun sets, and at the peak of your set, the sun is setting. And then as you kind of climax your set and go to you know, the really deep stuff in your set, the sun is down and it's now nighttime. And I really love that concept. That concept really excited me. So taking these 3 ingredients, I know this is kind of like a crazy backstory, but taking these 3 ingredients, the fact that I was exposed to a beautiful botanic gardens in an outdoor setting, the fact that I took this disco class when I was in college and I fell in love with disco and this man named Nile Rodgers, and then also the fact that I really fell in love with this concept of these, sunset DJ sets in this outdoor setting. That got me to thinking about this like amazing, massive event, right? And I started talking to my friends about, this idea of, what if there was an event that took place in an outdoor setting, and I would reference the Botanic Gardens, like the Botanic Gardens or somewhere similar. And they played, and we had a DJ, and it was a sort of festival. And the whole festival was revolved around the fact that, the sun starts up, and then throughout the music and the DJing and all that, people are dancing, the community's together. There's at this event, there's good food, there's activities and fun events to do, and there's art and beautiful art installations and all sorts of things like that. And the whole event is taking place in this beautiful outdoor environment, like a botanic garden or something like that. And there's beautiful music, and the sun sets, and everyone is together and having a good time. And this was kind of sort of this like heavenly scene that I would play in my head of this outdoor dance party. So I would constantly, talk about that and kind of imagine it a lot. I'd kind of play this scene out in my imagination a lot, kind of like as if it were my happy place. So that's all I would do. I would imagine it, I'd talk about it, but I didn't really do anything to make it real. I didn't actually take initiative to do anything about it. I would just kind of play with this idea in my imagination. Well, a few months ago, a little backstory here. I am a member of the Botanic Gardens. I have a annual membership, so I can go to the Botanic Gardens whenever I want. And I get emails for a newsletter for the Botanic Gardens. And a few months ago, I get an email talking about this summer event that's going to be taking place in the Botanic Gardens called Disco Oasis. And this immediately, I was like, what? When I heard about this, when I read this, I was like, what is this? And I started reading about it, and as I began reading about it, it's this newsletter was saying that it's this summer music event that's going on for a whole month, and there's going to be interactive art, and there's going to be a roller skating rink, a disco roller skating rink, custom made in the middle of the garden where the dried up lake bed used to be. So they're going to make a roller skating rink, they're going to have interactive art, they're going to have food trucks, they're going to have, games and arcades. And I'm reading through this, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. But then the cherry on top of all of this was that the spokesperson for the event was Nile Rodgers. And the music that would be playing, in the roller skating rink and being DJ'd was curated by Nile Rodgers. And as I was reading this, I was just, my mind was just blown. It was like, this is everything that I have been dreaming of now manifested, and it was just, it was amazing when I read that. I immediately, told my friends about it, and we got a group of people together. And finally we went to the event last night, and it was extraordinary. It was an amazing event. It was so beautiful. They really went all out with this setup, with the roller skating rink, with the arcade, with the food trucks, with just the beautiful garden, the beautiful music, the beautiful people that were there, and being able to share that with my friends and family was so amazing and awesome. And to have that event actually manifest and become real was so cool. Now, I'm saying I manifested this thing, but there's obviously, there's no way of proving that I manifested this, right? I had nothing to do with the organization of the event. All I can say is that I have been imagining and going into a place repeatedly in my imagination years prior to this. You know, I'm going to say 2 years prior to this, 3 years prior to this. I've been imagining an event like this taking place in a place like the Botanic Gardens, and this happened to take place in the Botanic Gardens. And it actually happened. So that is just the thing that I want to share with you guys today, is like, even if you don't know how to do something, there is no reason why you shouldn't imagine that thing or live in the end, right? Because let's say I imagine this event taking place in the Botanic Gardens and I thought to myself, well, you know, this is impossible. It can't happen. If I tried to make it happen, I don't have the capital. I don't have the financing. You know, the city council is probably going to be against it because all this stuff is, you know, there's just too many people are going to come. And, you know, and I think about all the limitations for me that I would come across if I were to try to make this event happen. So I'd start, if I thought of it like that, if I thought of this event happening from that perspective of like, this is impossible, this could never happen, I don't know how or where I would start, then I would stop imagining, right? But I didn't think about that. I wasn't attached to this thing actually becoming real in the physical reality. I would just imagine this event taking place. I would actually put myself in imaginal scenes where I was in an outdoor area like the Botanic Gardens, like a forested environment. I would imagine myself surrounded by beautiful people. I'd imagine myself listening to music, like disco music or house music. I'd imagine the sun setting behind the DJ, and I'd imagine happy people. And I'd imagine just a beautiful event taking place. And that's what I would do over and over again. And I talk about it with a lot of my friends. And that's it. You know, I wasn't attached to it actually becoming real. And then a few months ago, I get an email newsletter that this exact event that I've been imagining is taking place. And I must say it over-delivered. This event over-delivered my expectations based off what I was imagining. So I just want to share this story with you guys to sort of inspire you to just imagine these things. You know, imagine big things. Obviously, if I were to try to put this event on by myself, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do it. You know, maybe I would have, but I never thought of how is this event going to happen. I just went straight to the end. I imagined a reality where there was an outdoor event in a garden, or maybe like the Botanic Gardens, and I imagined the sun setting with a DJ with beautiful people surrounding me. That's all I imagined. And I'd go to that place in my mind, and I thought about how cool that would be. And it became real, and I didn't have to lift a finger to make it happen. I just had to go there in my imagination, and that now became my reality. I can say I've lived in that physical reality. I've lived in that imaginal reality well before I went to that physical reality. But just goes to show how you shouldn't focus on the how. Just go straight to the end. And if, you know, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people are moved or need to be moved in order to fulfill what you've seen in your imagination, that's exactly what's going to happen. And in this case, that is what happened. You know, and to have all these points kind of fulfilled, having an event in the Botanic Gardens, a place that I love, having the music curated by my hero, Nile Rodgers, having, you know, disco music and house music played in this garden, having this wasn't a part of my manifestation, but they built a roller rink inside this in the garden, which was amazing. But you know, having really good food there, having my friends and family there, you know, this is just everything I could have asked for, and it actually manifested. So just a fun thing that manifested. If they do it next year, which I really hope they do, I'm definitely going back because it was an amazing event. And yeah, it just goes to show, guys, like, just imagine big things. Like, imagine the biggest things possible. You'll be surprised to see that something similar to what you've imagining, or even better than what you've been imagining, presents itself to you. And you'll be surprised to find that, you know, you didn't have to do any work to make that thing happen. Just the mere fact of that you went to that place in your imagination first is what set things into motion. Now, can I prove that I was the one who set this event into motion? No, there's no way of proving that I sent this event into motion. You know, maybe I could go back into my journals that date back years ago, and I could find writings where I journaled about an event such as the one that took place last night. I'm sure I could find those writings. I could go back to my journals, you know, from a couple years ago, and I could find these writings all the way up to, you know, my journals dating from present day. You know I would find writings describing an event like this because I've written about it a lot of times. But I can't prove that I was the one who set it into motion. But I know that I've been to that place many times. An event like the event that I attended last night, I've been to that event in my imagination many times. I've spoken about that event many times. I've written about that event many times. And then last night it became manifested for me in my physical reality. So just wanted to share this video with you guys to inspire you to just imagine big things. You know, imagine big things. Don't focus on how things are going to happen. Just go to that place in your imagination. Build that world in your imagination. Expand on that world in your imagination. Give it the tones of reality. Write about it. Speak about it. Imagine it in your mind's eye, and watch what happens. You know, just keep an open eye. Oftentimes you won't have to lift a finger to see that reality become fulfilled. So thank you guys so much. I hope this story inspires you in some way. And yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys this quick video. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. On this channel, I share my manifestation success stories, as well as some sort of manifestation and mindset tips, so that you can bring your version of heaven into this world, because all of this stuff is real. It works. It's tried and proven. You know, I've been there, I've done it, I've seen the miracles that can be done. I've experienced it firsthand. Everything that I speak about is from my own personal experience, which I believe is the greatest proof that something is real and works. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you like this video. And yeah, I'm gonna be posting more, and that's all I really have for you guys today. So thank you guys very much for watching this video, joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one.